Wonder Woman 1984 hits theaters in June 2020, and as the title hints, the movie will be set in the year 1984. Gal Gadot is set to return as Diana Prince, and Kristen Wiig has been cast as Cheetah, one of Wonder Woman's oldest and most nefarious foes. We know this as DC has released the official synopsis for the movie, which confirms that Cheetah will be the main antagonist. It is further confirmed that the movie will be another adventure thriller where Wonder Woman finds herself amidst chaos as Cold War tension rages on between two world superpowers, USA and USSR. So today we are going to explore the villain Cheetah and who she is. How does she fit into this Wonder Woman sequel?
Put the sword down, first of all.
Promise me you will protect it with your life.
Yes.
Cheetah is one of the classic Wonder Woman villains who has been around from the very earliest days of Wonder Woman comics. Over the years, 4 different people have taken up the mantle of Cheetah, and out of those 4, 3 have been women. Priscilla and Deborah Domaine were the first 2 cheetahs in the golden age of comics. They had no special superpowers of their own, rather they were normal ladies in some cheetah costume, just like Batman. Since they were no match for Wonder Woman's strength and durability, they often avoided head-on clash, and they often relied on manipulative skills, pulling threads behind the curtain to create some major problems for Diana Prince. Priscilla, the first cheetah, suffered from split personality because of her insecurities and inferiority complex. But that wasn't something that held her back, rather it made her more dangerous. At one point, she framed Wonder Woman for a robbery by planting some evidences in her house and then tipping off the police. Now that is some Mysterio level stuff. But let's stay focused on DC for now. The second cheetah, Deborah Domaine, was a niece of Priscilla. She was captured by some villains who brainwashed her and introduced her to the secret life of her aunt. Debbie had several classes with Wonder Woman, and she even goes on to become a member of the Secret Society of Supervillains. However, later on in the comics, the character of Debbie was retconned as if she never existed. And with that, we move on to the most prominent version of Cheetah, Barbara Ann Minerva. And it is she who will be seen in the upcoming Wonder Woman sequel. Minerva is a genius archaeologist with 2 PhDs and mastery in 7 languages. Since her early childhood, Barbara enjoyed mythology and showed an affinity for language. However, her father mocked her interest in myth, considering it to be childish. So in a way to get back to her father, as an adult, she decided to pursue her passion for myth and legend, and she even goes on to take her late mother's maiden name, Minerva. By the age 26, she had mastered 7 languages and earned 2 PhDs in archaeology. In one of her expeditions, she discovered substantial proof for existence of Amazonians. But unfortunately, that dig site collapsed before she could have had a chance to gather all the necessary information. But luckily, she had taken some pictures which helped her to figure out the potential location of Wonder Woman's home island. But since we know that the island is hidden from general public's view, Barbara faced a dead end. But things change soon for Minerva when Wonder Woman saves Steve Trevor and comes to return him to US Navy. It is here that Barbara is called upon to help translate Diana's language, and in the process, they two end up becoming close friends. After learning that her hypothesis about Amazonians was correct, Barbara becomes obsessed with Divine, and she decides to seek out proof for other deities. And when she learns about a plant god Daga, she goes on an expedition to Africa to seek him out. And as things would turn out, she indeed finds him and is forced to marry him. This marriage bestows upon her some demigod level powers like superhuman strength, durability, stamina and speed. As you can't take on the name Cheetah unless you have super speed, since it would be kind of dubious, as if a Spider-Man not being able to climb on walls or able to use his webbings. Well, Minerva never wanted to be Cheetah, and she hated her forced transformation. She blamed Wonder Woman for failing to save her, and thus the rivalry starts. Once best friends were now on 2 opposing sides. But sadly for Barbara and Minerva, these superpowers came at a cost, as she was forced to transform physically into some cheetah-human hybrid. But luckily she has this ability to change forms at will, so she doesn't need to wait for full moon to get things done. Cheetah also possesses a heightened sense of smell and night vision, which comes in handy during her stealth missions. She also has super reflexes and agility that allows her to perform parkour feats for inhuman mobility. These cool sets of superhuman powers allows her to challenge Wonder Woman in a duel, unlike the 2 previous versions of Cheetah who had no such superpowers. And if that wasn't enough, the claws and fangs of Cheetah are sharp and durable enough to cut right through the Amazonians, including the Wonder Woman. At one point, she is shown to pierce Superman's invulnerable skin with her fangs just as easily as if he were a normal human. And there is more. Remember Night King of Game of Thrones, who used to raise the dead and command them as his slaves? Well, Cheetah too possesses a similar power, as her bite transforms some of her powers into her victims, turning them into a human-cat hybrids, and these new creatures are totally under her control. So in theory, she could raise an army of her own. With all these superpowers, Barbara and Minerva's Cheetah is more than capable of taking on Wonder Woman. So that's all you need to know about the Cheetah. But now the question remains, how will she fit into the Wonder Woman sequel? Remember a minute ago we talked about Minerva going to Africa to meet that plant god who transforms her into Cheetah? Well, as it turns out, the sons of Ares were pulling the strings to make Minerva the new Cheetah, in hope that she would join their side and help them in locating Themyscira. We know that Ares was the villain of the first movie, so maybe DC would continue building the mythos and introduce other deities like Sons of Ares and Urch-Kartaga. It remains to be seen if we will see the full origin story of Cheetah, like she being friend with Diana in the first act of the movie, and then discovering the lost tribe of Africa in the second act and becoming the villain in the third act of the movie, just like Harvey Dent in Dark Knight. Or maybe her character arc will be that of a straight-up villain, like that of Caecilius in Doctor Strange movie, and her backstory being explained by some exposition scenes. I would personally love to see her story being told, as that's how you make great villains. Remember Loki in the first Thor movie? But we don't have much concrete information to be sure which of these two possibilities we are finally going to see in the movie. There's also the fact that we'll get Steve Trevor back, as Chris Pine is confirmed to reprise his role in the upcoming sequel. So he too pulled another Captain America with that plane carrying deadly explosives. We don't yet know how he managed to get out of that plane just in time. Maybe one of the gods saved him, considering how important he was for Diana. In Wonder Woman 1984, he must be some 60-year-old guy, unless he too was under ice. So it would be interesting to look out for their reunion, as Diana wouldn't have aged a day, whereas Steve would be counting his last days, as in 1980s, average life expectancy was hardly 70 years. But hey, we are in the world of movies, so maybe we shouldn't be too strict with the statistics and science. And with that, we'll bring this video to an end. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more upcoming content.